out of the positive and negative cred of everyone knowing the songs in the last block to I wouldn't say you go unpopular with these, but like I feel like it really starts to web out here at the end, like in a way that pumps me up a lot. Like the playlist like takes this sharp incline, and I love it.
I think I agree. I think it's the modern, like, learned from 2 blocks ago, finding obscure, cool ways to branch out.
Yeah.
So we've referenced him a handful of times in the past few episodes, but our buddy Elliot, when he was living in the Northeast, and blogs started to be like a thing, like when Tumblr really got popular in 2010 or 2011, he and I started a blog that was basically like a more hip hop and basketball version of the Bitter Southerner. We called it Good Old Boys. This was a white guy and a black guy, and like it was like a gentleman's type take, like GQ, and also We Love the Hawks and rap. It was extremely hyper specific to us. But we had a lot of fun. But in that period of 2011 to 2013, you had this incredible upswing of like SoundCloud, like 1.0 SoundCloud rap, right? Where just like so much more music was getting made and people were putting stuff out like on the reg. There were mixtape sites like Hot New Hip Hop and like people were just putting out music at a crazy clip, and you had this kind of class of cut above rappers that like curated an incredible visual aesthetic. Sonically, we're always going after kind of like a higher order thing. The best example, and I give all credit to Elliot for making me a fan, is Currency.
Hell yeah.
Who I will continue to maintain as rap game Miles Davis. It's like always changing. He's always on his own wavelength. He has a gazillion songs at this point. In fact, he has a new EP coming out pretty soon. It may be out by the time we release this episode. But Currency, I think you got to put Wiz Khalifa in that category, certainly in the context of this episode. Action Bronson, whose material appears twice in this block. And then Kendrick Lamar is probably on a little bit of a higher plane than all of them, but in the context of like sampling and audio aesthetic, all of these people kind of came up in the same garden, if you will. They're all in very different places now, but such a cool moment where you started to hear these like crazy beats. And you got to I attribute certainly a lot of it to The Alchemist and Party Supplies. And like The Alchemist, you can hear, if you are into the new Freddie Gibbs, you can hear the work of The Alchemist and how it's a very specific, like such evocative and always so obscure, his crate digs and the beats he samples. But some of my favorite hip hop, like around 2012, I sat up in my chair and realized like this is a very specific thing that I love because of all these Alchemist beats that are incredible things. And in particular, the connection between these songs is that they're really like a palette. They're the opposite of before, where they draw all the material from the song. Mm-hmm. It's really more like putting a mood board on the wall and being like, you look at Currency and Wiz as a great example. They made a whole EP called Live in Concert that samples entirely Bobbi Humphrey. And I want to read the quote that Currency had about it in a minute, but it's basically like, if you want to project an air of sophistication as a rapper, they had a very like visual thing that they were going for, like cigars and shoes with no socks and like boats and stuff. They used the musical palette as a jump off. And that was kind of it, right? It just like set a vibe in a way that making your own beat wouldn't necessarily do. So Currency explained to Double XL when they asked him why it took so long to put this Live in Concert project out. It was because of sample clearance issues, because they had used so much Bobbi Humphrey material. And he said, and I wish I could do the Currency like sort of almost a lisp thing. But he's like, let's think about what Ron Burgundy's jazz flute did to Mrs. Corningstone. Ron Burgundy mastered that flute, and it made him able to bring her to Pleasure Town on animated horses, and they were fucking out in the solar system and all of that. So how could we not employ the talents of Ron Burgundy and his jazz flute on as many cuts as possible for live and concert? And I know there had to be a deep inhale, and then he was like, nah, man. That's a genius. That's Bobbi Humphrey and his album that was put together long before me and my brother Wiz ever thought about rapping. Laughs. I think at one point there's maybe 2 minutes of flute and nothing else. It's for everybody's soul, man. Some people don't understand it immediately, but after they give it a second and third listen, they understand the music. So all of these are about vibing, right? Just total vibe checks. So the Bobbi Humphrey song is Mestizo Eyes, and there's a foreign cut, I think a Brazilian cut, Lindo by Wanderlea, that was sampled in I don't know how popular it even was. The really popular Action Bronson and Riff Raff song was Bird on a Wire, but they put out this other one with this Milwaukee producer. I can't even remember the name of the producer, and the song was called Hot Shots Part 2. And I still, on a regular basis, quote lines from this song. Because you can tell the music, brings out a little, kind of different swagger in them. But the Riff Raff verse in this is still the most insane shit there is. And I can probably do it word for word. It starts with Ruby Tuesday, Cinderella Ballerina, important ported passports, have you seen her? Poppin' Fendi collars might be Barry Gordy. Pterodactyl dashboard, seats prehistoric, dinosaur.
Riff Raff.
There aren't a lot of things that, of course, when you put on a Brazilian 70s soul jam, you're going to get something weird out of a person like Riff Raff. And I I wish I could get in a time machine and go back to Wanderlea and be like, this is what happens in the future. But it's so great. It all works together. The other Action Bronson example is... and again, this is the genius of Party Supplies, a very Alchemist-like producer. Samples the Asha Puthli version of the Bill Withers song, Let Me In Your Life, where it's a little dreamier and a little more billowy. Mm-hmm. And I just love that there's the specificity of that. And the hook on that Terry song is Don't Hurt Me Again. And it just pulls out all the right elements of the spirit of that song. So vibey. And the keys actually, I think, sound a little better than the Bill Withers version. And then the other two songs in this are extremely iconic examples. You know them as soon as you
I did not know, though, about the Old Town Road sample.
Really? The Nine Inch Nails thing?
No, because I couldn't figure out how to take Old Town Road for a second. And I was like, he was doing all that great stuff where he was playing for kids in cafeterias and stuff. Oh. And I was like, okay.
That's a good reset. That's a good palate cleanser for 2020. Oh. Anytime you need to be reminded that it's not all bad, watching him make a cafeteria full of kids light up.
They're so stoked.
He unlocked the purest thing that there is in the world, man. It's a perfect song because if it passes the cafeteria full of 8-year-olds test, it's pretty dope.
Riff Raff couldn't do that.
Riff Raff couldn't do that. I'd like to see him try, though, honestly. He'd be like the guy that drives up in a monster truck and flattens the flagpole out front. What's up, kids? Don't do drugs. Or maybe do drugs. They're kind of tight, but then get over it later. I'm Hulk Hogan. Riff Raff. I don't know. I got the MTV logo tattooed on my neck. Make better life choices than me. Bye!
Welcome to the Kenny Powers Memorial Baseball Field. We're going to teach you kids some baseball.
Riff Raff is kind of like rap Kenny Powers a little bit. Oh, wow.
With no upswing in the name of the bark at the end.
No upswing in the name of the bark, but exactly the same amount of mullet. Anyway, back to Lil Nas X. Keo, who made that beat, just pulled it off of YouTube. This is the most late millennial, early Gen Z thing ever. Just pulled it off of YouTube, liked the vibe, sold the beat online for $30 or something. Nas uploaded it.
Audio Jungle.
Deep. Lil Nas uploaded it, not really thinking anything of it necessarily. I know he thought like it could be a thing, but no one alive, and I would fight anyone who says otherwise. No one alive could predict any single song would get as big as that one did.
Yeah.
And we'll share a video that I don't remember if Jeannie's put it together or who, where it's Keo talking about the making of that beat, and then there's a montage at the end of all the ways that it blew up, like spent 100 weeks on Billboard, or something crazy. Obviously the Billy Ray Cyrus stuff, like the biggest monoculture moment that we've had in the 2010s period was that song. And the sample was also not cleared, and that's a part of this that we haven't talked about at all, is like how lawyers get so close to ruining this art form on a near constant basis.
We give some predictable commentary on that in other episodes.
Right. So I don't want to belabor that because there's a lot of joy in this episode.
Yeah.
But there was a great, like, Trent Reznor came out proactively, just like on the record, being like, this song is incredible and I don't want to stop progress. Far be it for me to do any, like, and he's been on the right side of history with, like, you know, Creative Commons and just like the sharing of intellectual property and all that. Yeah. So part of that was because they inadvertently picked the right guy to draw from. But it came from from his Ghosts EP LP, which is just like 150 or something absurd, like sketchbook instrumentals.
It rules though.
It's so good, right? And it's where you start to get into that like deep cut later period, 9 Inch Nails of Trent and Atticus, like just dipping into little vibes here and there, and you know it's an offshoot of their score work and that sort of stuff. But that it turned into it does feel, and I don't know that I would have ever thought this before, but it does feel like walking into a Western ghost town. It's got a little bit of that dystopian thing, but it's just amazing the way that it turned into something totally different. And the biggest song in the world of the past 10 years came from a dark and depressing 9 Inch Nails song from just super, super cool.
Just such a rare and like deeply meaningful moment when that array of things can come together. There's a song, everyone loves it, kids love it. Like the dude who you stole the sample from is just like, music is music, use it. Like I feel like those are almost like the moments that we perceive could happen in reality a lot more often. And it's almost like can we just make a little bit of content that sort of for a moment imagines that that's happening more and more, and can we create like more of those moments? Because it's so beautiful when it all happens and all of a sudden everyone is just like, music is music, open hands, do whatever you want, make each other happy.
Did we just do a thesis about how Old Town Road is the greatest song in history? I can make a case. I don't want to hear nobody better talk bad about Old Town Road in my presence. Let's close with one that I hope there's no argument about the quality of the song, and that's Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe by Kendrick. Sounds completely like its own thing. But then when you hear the Swedish Boom Clap Bachelors song, and it is that song, it's sort of like when you hear Otis Redding's Satisfaction and then you hear the Rolling Stones, and you're like, oh, that doesn't belong to you anymore. Just give it up.
Yep.
But there's a quality in the Swedish original Tiden Flyver. I don't know. Sorry if that was accidentally racist.
Against Swedish people?
Yeah, I don't know. You can be racist against anyone.
Okay, they'll be fine.
They will be fine. They have socialized medicine. It reminds me so much of like 07 and the kind of like down tempo type of stuff that has that kind of Swedish Nordic vibe. No pun intended. But it's a great place to end because there's almost a like Venn diagram overlap thing. Like you can enjoy both of them together because they are so deeply connected that you can enjoy them separately, but they do the exact same thing vibe-wise. And I don't think there's that much planetary alignment with any of the other source material and song with sample. all of them, to your point, are like more fractal.
Yeah.
And they go into their own different places. But there's just such a, whatever they did when they were writing it, and the combination of pedals that gave them that guitar tone, and just that perfect lick that they arrived at is like, I don't know, man. It's like a McDonald's Coke that tastes the same no matter where in the world you are. It's like always delicious.
I didn't realize this at the time, but ending on anything with Swedish influence gives us a nice segue into the next episode. So that'll actually work fine. That's why I'm saying, don't worry. We're about to spend another hour thanking the Swedes for something really particular.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah.
So the long and short is, I hope this gives you a new way to find and appreciate music. There was, when I had a Facebook, there was a Facebook group called Vinyl Archaeology, where people would share the most obscure stuff that they could find, but not in a spirit of competition, in a spirit of like, hey, use this on your own beats, or hey, put this on your own playlist, or hey, I found this record for $2 and it's, you know, it went on to be in a song that went platinum, or whatever the thing is. One of the best ways, I think, to honor music is to have that same spirit of joy and openness and sharing, and not protectiveness or intellectual property or whatever. Just like enter into this culture with the right kind of song in your heart, and the rewards will be constant and near infinite.
To me, it's a little bit like when you go and visit some grandparents and they've got the curio cabinets full of tchotchkes, and you're just kind of like, why would you have a thin bowl with a rabbit painted on the front? And they're like, well, let me tell you the story about this time where we were in this crazy place and we did, like, to me, that's what I love talking to you about with all these samples. Just like, take me on a journey, man. I don't know anything about this song. Take me in 30 different directions and tell me why and how you even ended up here. Like, it brings such joy. It's such a nice thing to talk about.
And isn't it nice to have joy in 2020?
Remember it.
Remember joy. This is how we can remember it.
For sure. Hey, music's staying. It'll still be here when we get back.
Long after we're gone.
That's right.
This was fun. Thanks.